tell me how to say ladies and gentlemen in gender-neutral terms.
Realize that you can watch all of the shit that's out there. Don't let either company trick you into thinking it's a us versus them thing. Just enjoy the wrestling. Whether it's WWE or AEW or NXT, you guys don't have to choose. You can watch it all. That's rad.
Fight forever, Guardian!
I think you broke it.
Look what you made me do!
And you're listening to Hell in a Cell Radio.
The Hell in a Cell Talk Radio.
Hell in a Cell Radio.
Hell in a Cell Talk Radio.
Hell in a Cell Talk Radio.
HIAC. Yes, we paused for a moment of silence just to pick up the background noise. HIAC Talk Radio. Dan Colachico. Craig Lagans is here. We're waiting for the third man. He is the third man.
The third leg.
Derek has betrayed WCW, and who wouldn't? AEW might be going the way of WCW. Everything is lining up for them. Should be fine. Anyway, I had a great rant last week and it didn't piss anybody off, and I left it unedited. The only thing I edited was I kept the silence out of it, so I made it a faster clip. But kind of proves my theory. All spineless. The only time that promoters or wrestlers become unspineless is when they're like, "Oh, beat you up, fat boy." I'm like, I'm not really. That doesn't really help. Like, I'll still be right. I'll just have my ass kicked, and it won't be the first time, and apparently won't be the last. But my point is when are you gonna grow a spine and protect your business, other than protecting the business? Kayfabe died a long time ago. Maybe it's time to take care of the people that are in the business, but you never will. And if you are wondering what the hell I said, HIACTalkRadio.com. Craig?
There?
Let's start with a historian, because apparently something was missed, and I know what's coming up on this episode anyway, and unfortunately look forward to talking about this man. But anyway, it's your show for now.
It's our show for always. And
well, yeah, sure.
We will dive back into the history of the great sport we once loved and we once shared with millions, not hundreds of thousands of people on a given weeknight. Millions of people watched the professional wrestling in arenas, coliseums, stadiums, high school gymnasiums throughout all 50 states, and where millions upon millions would watch wrestling on nationwide television, on cable, each and every week, regardless of who was on it or who was not on it. And there were things called pay-per-views that once a month would galvanize the wrestling industry. All this and more on a special look back edition of the Wrestling Historian. Last we joined you,
last time
on previously on HIAC Talk Radio, we were talking about the week that was Halloween Havoc week, and our tributes and our favorite memories of Halloween Havoc, and I was bumfuzzled and bestruck with the huge oversight that took place when discussing Halloween Havoc, because any discussion about Halloween Havoc or the history of Halloween Havoc is incomplete without talking about possibly not only the best match ever at Halloween Havoc, possibly the best match ever on a WCW pay-per-view, and far and away the single greatest cruiserweight match in WCW history. We're talking about all the great Halloween Havocs. I didn't mention Halloween Havoc 1997 between the Phantom, Rey Mysterio, and the reigning defending cruiserweight champion at the time, Eddie Guerrero. A match took place October 27th, 1997. I watched it again. Even I was watching it before I realized it was the anniversary of the show, because I've seen it so many times and I never get tired of seeing it. And I've watched it so often on mute that I forget that there was 4 people on commentary for this match,
and it was amazing.
and it was amazing. You had Tony Schiavone, Mike Tenay, Dusty Rhodes, and Bobby Heenan talking about this match. Title versus mask. Ray's mask was on the line, and as soon as I saw Ray come out in the Phantom gear, that was to his promotion of the box office disaster that was the Phantom, starring Billy Zane. Even though it was being promoted on TBS and nationwide, expected to be get this, folks. It was a comic book movie that expected to do big box office. The Phantom was a comic strip, popular in the 60s. I was even the Phantom for Halloween one year. That's how much I love the Phantom, the Ghost Who Walks. And
Oops.
And but Rey Mysterio was dressed as the Phantom, even though if he lost the match, he would lose his mask. And anyone would have a brain could see Ray's outfit was a complete body from head to toe. So to get the mask off him was going to be pretty rough. And Eddie came out wearing, dragging the belt over his shoulder. And I've always said it. Is before he became my favorite wrestler. Eddie Guerrero, WCW Eddie Guerrero was the best version of Eddie Guerrero as far as matches and his body. Even Bobby Heenan and Mike Tenay commented on how great a shape he was in. Eddie Guerrero in WCW Eddie Guerrero was physical peak Eddie Guerrero. And if you watch this match on Halloween Havoc 97, his body looked amazing, absolutely amazing. And watch it again, and this was Eddie and Ray still, both of them said that this was their favorite match that they've ever had. And Eddie said on his own documentary that when he looks back on that match, that's the only match he looks back on and say, wouldn't change a thing.
It's so good. And yeah, we watched it too. Only because we started laughing about Dusty's attempt at saying athleticism. Amazing feat of athleticism. You know what I mean? No, I have no idea what you mean, Dusty. Nobody does. Sorry, buddy.
No, and early in the match, about 10 minutes in, Ray went to the top rope and did a springboard DDT on Eddie, a move that he had never done before and has never done since. He only did it in that match against Ray. And it still holds up as one of the single greatest moves in the Rey Mysterio arsenal. Again, that he never did before and he's never done again, because it was completely organic for him to do a backflip into a DDT on Eddie. And that's just because of the amazing innate chemistry that they both had.
It's just perfect.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
Yeah. Which is why I was kicking myself after our last telecast that if we're talking about, your entire historian segment was about Halloween Havoc, and I missed that match.
And we missed that one. Well,
I missed that one. The best, still maybe the best match in my opinion in Halloween Havoc history, and one of the best matches in wrestling history, maybe the best match in WCW history, and possibly the best match in WCW pay-per-view history.
I mean, hard for me to argue that point as well.
Yeah.
Every part of that is perfect from start to finish. It just is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, their give and take, and Eddie and Ray obviously have had so many great matches after that. Not just on WCW, but in the WWE. They became WWE Tag Team Champions, and obviously had a long history of matches between those two. But yeah, that Halloween Havoc match will always be the zenith for that.
Oh God, yeah. And the fact that it holds up for so long.
Yeah.
It just it holds up against anything.
Mm-hmm.
Anything, any match you put at it.
Yeah.
Happening now.
Yeah.
It's no touching it.
Mm-mm.
Look up Halloween Havoc. It's on YouTube. You don't have to pay for the damn thing. Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Halloween Havoc 1997.
Yes.
Just look up Halloween Havoc 97, Guerrero Mysterio. First thing that pops up.
Yeah.
Crowd was on fire. Like, I don't understand how you watch that.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric Bischoff's not like, we should do something.
Well, just like, and just the cruiserweights as a whole, and we've mentioned this on past podcasts about the amazing pop. The biggest pop that Chris Jericho ever had in his life was for a cruiserweight match, the Cruiserweight Battle Royal. The fans are standing, jumping up and down, with Dean Malenko just taking off his mask. And this is during right in the middle of the NWO period. But the biggest pop of the night was for a Cruiserweight Battle Royal, and Dean Malenko taking off his mask. The best match of Halloween Havoc 97 was Eddie and Ray, again in a Cruiserweight match. And never mind, all these guys went on to become great heavyweights and heavyweight champions, but you had gold right there, and right in your own backyard and like under your nose.
Yeah.
And we'll get to AEW in a second, but it's when you have all these talents that fans want to see, and you're not giving it to them, and it reflects in your ratings and your attendance, because in WCW people would watch, the whole show, but the matches the people they wanted to see, they were behind. They watched in record numbers, and they cheered for at the live crowds. And yeah, everyone wore their NWO shirts, but I'll tell you, the best match of the night was whatever Eddie, Ray, Dean Malenko, Juventud, whatever they were doing. But yes, I digest. Speaking of the fans and getting to and wanting to see what was big, this week in pro wrestling history, you'll notice a name being used over. You'll notice a pattern. I talked about Halloween Havoc 97, the best match on that pay-per-view. November 6th, 1994. Some would still argue maybe the best pay-per-view by any company in history was the November 6th, 1994 AAA When Worlds Collide. The pay-per-view, some would say, that changed professional wrestling. It was at the LA Sports Arena, and they had 15,000 fans. And this was in 1994, folks. And in 1994, the worst year financially for professional wrestling in both companies. The AWA had gone out of business. NWA was no more. WCW and WWF were the big two, but money was down across the board. I mean, there was a financial wise in the United States, there was a depression, and that affected the wrestling business. Like anytime the economy goes bad, when the economy has been bad in the United States, professional wrestling would survive. You could still get a sellout even in a country where there was economic, a downturn. But in 1994, it wasn't happening. Ratings were down. Live crowds were really down. Kevin Nash still holds the record for being the least drawing WWF champion of all time, and which is not entirely his fault, again, because of the economic status of the United States. I say all that because in Los Angeles, on the West Coast, in Mexico, the AAA Wrestling Federation was selling out the LA Sports Arena every single month without fail. And the number one team doing that was Los Gringos Locos, the team of Art Barr and Eddie Guerrero. Not only were they the biggest heel tag team in that company, they were the biggest heel tag team in the United States. No one was getting heat like these two guys were. No other tag team, not single wrestler, tag team, were drawing sellout crowds anywhere except these two guys. And the culmination took place when Worlds Collide, because they had been drawing they were doing such record business when no other wrestling organization in the United States were, that Eric Bischoff, one of the few things he did get right was, I'm going to capitalize on this, and I want to produce this and have some of my wrestlers on this card and get this pay-per-view, get this show on a pay-per-view so more people could see it. And it was, other people were that Chris Benoit was on the show in a mask as the Pegasus Kid, Louis Piccoli. This was the first time that American audiences saw Rey Mysterio versus Psychosis on this When Worlds Collide pay-per-view. And the main event was Octagon and El Hijo del Santo against Los Gringos Locos, Art Barr and Eddie Guerrero, in a 3 falls match. And each fall was an elimination bout. So both members of the team had to be defeated in order to win the match. A concept that was innovative at the time, and for some reason has never been duplicated.
Really?
We can have a cage door slam on somebody's head every year since 1982, but no one can take this elimination tag team bout. The only way you can win, you have to pin both members of the team.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Hijo del Santo and Octagon won the bout. Speaking of homework, if you're going to watch Halloween Havoc 97 with Eddie and Ray, watch When Worlds Collide, Los Gringos Locos versus Octagon and El Hijo del Santo. It went about 28 minutes. Again, amazing action. The fans were just up in arms, and the heat that Guerrero and Art Barr got was just, you couldn't see it anywhere else. And again, in 1994, when business was down across the United States, except in LA, these two guys were the hottest thing that happened. Why I said it was a pay-per-view that changed wrestling, because, like I said, this was the first time American audiences saw Rey Mysterio, Psychosis, Chris Benoit, Louis Piccoli, and Art Barr and Eddie Guerrero, and all of them got signed to one of the big two, and I should say 3, because ECW was at the time the third viable pro wrestling company, and because of the When Worlds Collide pay-per-view, Ray, Psychosis, Juventud, Louis Piccoli were all picked up by ECW. The plan was to bring in Los Gringos Locos because Philly fans, smart fans, tape traders already knew how insanely popular Art Barr and Eddie Guerrero were, so they were going to come into ECW as a team and kind of be what the Dudley Boys turned out to be, the most popular team in ECW. And sadly, did not work out that way because when Worlds Collide, the main event between Los Gringos Locos and Octagon and El Hijo del Santos, Los Gringos Locos losing the bout, Art Barr and Eddie Guerrero, and that will be Art Barr's last match ever.
Yeah. Is that on the network?
No.
Hmm.
No.
Well, why the fuck not?
I don't know why so many shows from other territories aren't on the network.
And there's a lot that are.
Yeah.
So why that?
Yeah, because it technically wasn't a WCW pay-per-view.
Oh, sure. But
yeah. So yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's interesting.
From the
I hope I can find that on YouTube or something.
Yeah. Even if it's just that match, the
I'm good with
pay-per-view.
that.
Yeah. I remember it was on the network before it was on the cock. It was on the WWE network. But yeah, when Worlds Collide, November 6th, 1994, maybe the pay-per-view that changed professional wrestling because more stars came out of that match that became mainstream successes. And this is the first time American audience had seen any of these professional wrestlers, and they all got signed. They all got their big breaks, and we have When Worlds Collide to thank for that. That was November 6th.
Thank you, When Worlds Collide.
Thank you, When Worlds Collide. That was also the first time the commentators, Mike Tenay and Chris Cruz, they called it expertly.
Well,
no. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
No comment.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris seems like a great guy.
Yeah, great announcer. I can't say that.
Sure,
he knew his stuff.
We're just gonna have to agree to disagree on that.
Okay. Okay. Well, he was a commentator.
I'll just let you have that one.
I'll let you have. Thank you for letting me have it.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give it to you. I'll give you that one.
Thank you. And we'll never speak of this again.
Yeah. We'll never ever talk about this again.
November 7th, 1985. Speaking of pay-per-views that changed professional wrestling forever. Not on the scale of When Worlds Collide, not on the scale of Halloween Havoc, but November 7th, 1985 was the WWF Wrestling Classic that was, Dan, the first WWF pay-per-view ever. It wasn't WrestleMania. That was on closed circuit television. The first pay-per-view in WWF history was the Wrestling Classic, where would be a one-night tournament where the winner would get a brand new 1986 Cadillac.
Ooh. I couldn't do that yesterday. It would have been crippling.
Well, we don't want to cripple you.
No, not today.
The one-night tournament. You had some crazy matchups. Moondog Spot beat Terry Funk by countout.
Okay.
And it was only because Terry Funk didn't want to wrestle, and so he walked and he told the guy,
I'm not going out there.
Wrestle. Yeah, and I don't want to. And he he said, no, I don't want to. He walked, and then the referee was counting, and the referee counted to 10, and Spot won. And he gave that Terry Funk fit. Like, how dare he lost the match to that guy? And they were afterwards to beat up Moondog Spot. And Moondog Spot went on in the tournament, and he would lose to JYD, and then the very next round in under a minute. So I don't know but it was to see Terry Funk throw a fit. And one of the first round tournament matches, Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat. Savage would win, and then he would go up against Davey Boy Smith. And that was the first time in that second round match that I saw a top rope superplex.
Oh, wow.
That Davey Boy gave to Randy. And when Davey Boy went to float over, it was Randy who pinned him. I'd never seen that before. And that was in 1985. So Savage would win and go on to the finals, where he would face the eventual winner, Junkyard Dog, who would win the bout by a count out. And
so
Savage
pay-per-view in there, and it's countouts.
And it's a count out. And
Okay.
so much, and it bothers commentator Jesse Ventura so much because Dog barely had to wrestle anyone. Beat Spot in a minute, Moondog Spot in a minute, and got there was a double disqualification, I think, between Paul Orndorff and Bob Orton, so he got to go right to the finals. And Savage was going through Ricky Steamboat, Davey Boy Smith.
Well, he should have tried harder then.
Yeah. But Dog won by a count out. And the main event of the Wrestling Classic was Hulk Hogan versus Roddy Piper in their first match since WrestleMania, which went to the disqualification. But yeah, the Wrestling Classic, very first pay-per-view, and was at the time one of the biggest selling videotape in the history of Coliseum home video. The Wrestling Classic, because it wasn't televised, there was only way you could see it was on pay-per-view, and if you rented the video.
That answers my question that most shows that started on pay-per-view eventually got a video release, but I'm assuming that started with Crockett, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming, because this is 85, so that's 2 years after Starrcade was a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I believe, right?
Yes. First Starrcade was, we're celebrating our 40th anniversary later this month.
Oh my God. We'll do that for another one. But that was a Flair for the Gold, was that not?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder. Yeah, geez. The wrestling class, I've never seen it.
Never?
And I'm looking at the match times for this. I've seen footage of it, but I've never sat down to watch this. Because, I mean, there's 15 matches. None of them go above 10 minutes. So I could probably bust it out in about an hour. Or not an hour, but about 2 hours.
Yeah, and you could fast forward through a lot of it because
looks like I'm gonna.
Yeah. Watch the Terry Funk Moondog spot and the Savage Davey Boy. You can watch the Savage Steamboat just to see where they would start, where they started.
Yeah, that's only 4 minutes. I can't imagine.
Yeah. Well, that was their first match together, and that was when they started forming their chemistry, because I think Steamboat said, it might have been in one of his YouTube videos, that was their first match, but it was the first time that Savage afterwards said, we got to work together again. We got to do something. And little did I know where it would take them 2 years later, because they didn't have a lot of matches leading up to in their Intercontinental title feud. But they always had this, and Steamboat said it's not like we hung out, we didn't. They're both notorious.
Not his friend, just saying.
But they're both notoriously married people. Their wives are very, big in both of their lives. So, but yeah, he said he He liked what Savage's, and with Flair, Steamboat and Flair, we talked about the innate chemistry that Mysterio and Guerrero had. Steamboat and Flair never called called everything in the ring, never worked out anything in the dressing room. Savage was the complete opposite. They had a system. They had numbers assigned to their spots that they would memorize, and that they had their whole WrestleMania 3, that whole match was memorized, that they had.
Same.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be the same, and it would be a different sequence if they did it again, but he can just call out, they can just remember a number, and that's the next spot they would do. But Savage and Steamboat had something special, and the first time they ever wrestled was on a forgotten pay-per-view,
forgotten
one night tournament match that went 4 minutes.
I'm looking at the VHS cover,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the official Coliseum Video presents the official World Wrestling Federation WrestleVision, a series of special events. The Wrestling Classic, and it has Hogan and Piper on the cover in the back. I have never seen this in my life. WrestleVision? Was that the only? God, he wanted to start a cable network / channel forever.
Yeah. Yeah, well, see, because pay-per-views were going to revolutionize the business. And then once Coliseum with their home videos, and then they would start taping all their house show matches, regardless of where they were, because they want to put all those matches on a Coliseum video. So if you look at like in the Coliseum line of videos, had titles that were just the weirdest, strangest matches ever. And they just put a whole bunch of house show matches from across the country on one video. And what made it great for the wrestlers back then, wrestlers would all get paid for the sale of the Coliseum videos. So they were raking it in. The only person who wasn't at the time was Jesse Ventura, but that's a deal for another.
That changed later.
Yeah, it changed.
That would change a little later.
Yeah. But but the Wrestling Classic was the first WWF pay-per-view ever.
Ever. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
You fuckers, ever.
Yeah, it wasn't WrestleMania. Nope. It was the wrestling. It was a Wrestling Classic. And November 7th, 1985.
Hold on.
Staying on the week of pay-per-views or shows that changed professional wrestling.
What people won't listening to this or watching this later won't know is about 30 minutes have passed from the Wrestling Classic topic to this. Go ahead.
But still seamless transition.
Seamless. Why? Because we're fucking professional.
Yeah, we are. But we were talking about the theme of this particular episode about pay-per-views that changed professional wrestling forever, and certain dates that changed professional wrestling. But we talked about the first WWF pay-per-view ever, the Wrestling Classic. But on today in wrestling history, a title changed hands that would change professional wrestling, mostly for the title holder, because on today, November 8th, 1975, was when perennial undercard man, perennial tag team champion, and just all around good wrestler, but never seen as that guy, it all changed when on November 8th, 1975, in St. Paul, Minnesota, Vern Gagne, the AWA heavyweight champion, would lose the title to one Nick Bockwinkel. And Nick Bockwinkel would go on to hold that title for 4 years straight. And in doing so, would not only be the most prolific AWA champion of all time, but would be the AWA champion to usher the AWA into the second biggest wrestling company in the United States. Because Nick Bockwinkel, not only did he wrestle all of the top contenders in the AWA, of which there were many, like Vern and like his former tag team partner, Ray Stevens, but he would venture out into NWA strongholds. He was the first AWA champion to headline bouts in Houston for Paul Bosch. He took the NWA title to Toronto and even defended that AWA championship against the WWF champion Bob Backlund. It was Nick Bockwinkel who took the AWA championship to Memphis and had an incredible feud with Jerry Lawler. And once the Memphis left, no longer was doing business in the NWA because Harley wasn't going to drop the belt in Memphis.
Nope.
But Nick Bockwinkel was open to having matches with Lawler, losing a non-title match with Lawler or losing a stipulation matches with Lawler, but their matches in Memphis were incredible, legendary. And Nick Bockwinkel was the one that made it possible. His matches always drew, and his opponents were just, he made so many great matches and he made so many great wrestlers. Namely, Jerry Lawler didn't need any help, but his matches against Nick Bockwinkel fueled the fact, kept Memphis alive and thought maybe give Memphis fans hope that maybe Jerry Lawler could in fact be the world champion one day. And it was his matches with Nick Bockwinkel that made it possible. And let's not forget, even as short-sighted as the promoter Vern Gagne was, it was Nick Bockwinkel who wrestled an up-and-coming, incredibly popular wrestler named Hulk Hogan, who was coming off in Rocky 3. But Hulk Hogan, after Rocky 3, was the most popular wrestler in the United States, and he was wrestling in the AWA. And going up against Nick Bockwinkel and selling out arenas, and the crowds would be deafening. And I bring this up because not only did they drop the ball by not putting the belt on Hulk Hogan, but while Nick Bockwinkel and Hulk Hogan were having sellout matches and crowds are going crazy, at this time, while Nick Bockwinkel was doing that, having great matches with Jerry Lawler and Hulk Hogan that same year, Nick Bockwinkel was 48 years old.
Oh, fuck. I didn't know that.
Nick Bockwinkel began his career in the 50s, folks. Son of the great Warren Bockwinkel. But so Nick Bockwinkel.
I'll take your word for that.
His matches with Hulk Hogan in '83, that matches that put Hogan on the map, that got the attention of Vince McMahon Jr. Because Vince McMahon Sr. told Hogan if he does this movie with Sylvester Stallone, he can no longer work in the WWF again. And
okay, brother, see ya.
But Vince Jr. saw another superstar, Billy Graham here, blonde hair, big muscles, charisma, and obviously didn't abide by his father's wishes. But his matches with Nick Bockwinkel is what made Hulk Hogan a viable, hey, maybe this guy could be the world champion, just like he did with Jerry Lawler. Wow, maybe this guy could be, because Nick Bockwinkel, consummate professional wrestler, worker, promo, it didn't hurt that he had the world's greatest manager at his side. But while Nick Bockwinkel was champion for 4 years, he was the first world champion to come out with a big gold belt and wearing a suit. Something that Ric Flair copied quite a bit. And it was Nick Bockwinkel with the blonde hair who would take upon himself to talk with Gene Okerlund amongst all the humanoids. The Nick Bockwinkel, Bobby Heenan, still, in my opinion, the greatest wrestler-manager combination of all time. But it started today in 1975, the 4-year run of the AWA heavyweight champion, Nick Bockwinkel.
Question.
Sir.
Nick Bockwinkel, the greatest star to never wrestle for WWF, WCW?
Oh, unquestionably. Great. He would later go on to work for the WWF. And
yes.
I remember one of the great pictures that Bill Apter took, and it still shocks me, of Nick Bockwinkel, Bobby Heenan, and Blackjack Lanza all getting out of the same car. And these were like the cornerstones of the AWA for 20 years, but here they all are parking in the WWF parking lot and all getting out of the same car. So kind of surreal. Yeah, the greatest wrestler to never wrestle, greatest champion that ever wrestled in the WWF. Yeah, Nick Bockwinkel. Yeah, I can't even think of who else. No one else is coming to mind. I was always shocked that Abdullah the Butcher was in the WWF Hall of Fame when he never wrestled, never set foot in the WWF ring his entire career. But now Nick Bockwinkel,
we know all about that reason.
Yeah. Now Nick did wrestle in Madison Square Garden, not as AWA champion, but never as AWA did he wrestle in the WWF ring. But yeah, greatest world champions. When people talk about greatest world champions ever, obviously Bruno and Flair comes about. But Nick Bockwinkel, because I guess because he was never in the big three, in the big two, people just automatically assume WWF and NWA. But the AWA was the second biggest wrestling company in the United States for most of his tenure when it was around. It was NWA, AWA, and the WWF was seen as a territorial belt because the champion would only wrestle in the Northeast, whereas the AWA and NWA champions would wrestle all over the United States. Like I mentioned, Bockwinkel wrestled in Toronto, in Houston, in Florida, in Los Angeles, in San Francisco. And yes, Derek, we still want you on. Bring your ass on here.
Yeah, I'm telling him, we're cutting it off at 10, and I want to know if he wants to still get on here.
Yeah. Also today in wrestling history, today in 2005, SmackDown taping in Indianapolis, Indiana. Were turned out to be it was a battle to see who would be on the Batista's team for the Survivor Series, and Mr. Kennedy would lose by disqualification to Eddie Guerrero in what would be Eddie's final bout ever. But in vintage Guerrero, the referee, Charles Little Nate Robinson, would get knocked down. Eddie would leave the ring, grab a chair, come back in the ring, see the referee coming to, slam the chair on the mat so the referee could hear the noise, and toss the chair to Kennedy and fall straight back and point to Kennedy with the chair in his hand. Charles Robinson would see Kennedy with the chair in his hand, would heard the chair shot, and immediately disqualified Kennedy for using the chair. The look on Kennedy's face, like, "Oh, it wasn't me." Priceless. Eddie wins by lying, cheating, and stealing. Again, priceless. And that would air 2 days before Eddie's tragic death on November 13th. That would air November 11th, but it was taped today, 2005 in Indianapolis.
It still seems Eddie was too good. Yes, he was. It still seems like that never happened. It seems surreal to me.
Yeah, and when I watched the bout again, Dan, today, and after the afterbirth of that match, after Eddie wins because he pretended that Kennedy hit him with a chair. Well, Kennedy actually did hit him with the chair afterwards, and it was a heck of a chair shot. My biggest fear was the thing that caused Eddie's death, and I wasn't relieved to know that it was a heart attack, but that it wasn't the trauma to his head that did it. The worst irony was 2 years later, on this very same date, to November 8th, 2007, was the CNN special called Death Grip, that talked about the lives of professional wrestlers. This was in the wake of the death of Chris Benoit. They mentioned Chris Kanyon, who had overdosed on sleeping pills earlier that year, and they just had people that they just like grabbed every professional wrestler they could, past, present, and even talked to local indie guys, people that have never met Chris Benoit day in their lives, to talk about it. I remember CM Punk was on it. Del Wilkes, the Patriot, was on.
Yeah.
Dynamite Kid's ex-wife was on. And the only person that had some cogent knowledge of it, and a person who's still fighting the good fight when it comes to CTE, was Chris Nowinski. The only guy that was like qualified to say something about it, but the whole thing just bugged me, and I felt weird that it bugged me until I read Chris Jericho's book about it. And we obviously know how I feel about Chris Jericho, but he did write, when he wrote in his book about the death of Chris Benoit and that particular show that CNN put together. They just grabbed a whole bunch of wrestlers. I mean, even Superstar Billy Graham was on one.
Nash was on this, wasn't he? Where
Yeah.
Nash is just like holding back not to rip a new asshole.
Yeah. Because it's like, imagine, and we both love Preston Steve, damn it. Imagine if a morning show host in Davenport, Iowa, killed his family and himself, and they interviewed Preston and Steve about it. And it's like, so yeah, I guess radio's pretty tough, huh? What do you want me to say?
No.
It's like, well, this business kills people, right? I mean, obviously it happened in Davenport, Iowa, so
does coal mining kills people.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just the amount of wrestlers that were on every, and not just CNN, but like a Nightline, and it was still a thing, and MSNBC, every like late cable outlet was grabbing it. I remember Mark Marrow was on one. And Marrow at least,
I don't remember that.
Yeah. Well, I listened to Marrow because he at least had been in the ring with Benoit, but again, still, what makes him an authority to talk about, what happened, a guy that you worked with, he killed his wife and his kid. What do you got? He didn't say anything to me about doing that. Like I work with
I don't goddamn know.
One of my favorite. This is a random aside. It just made me think about this. Did you ever hear Dave Chappelle? I mean, random aside segment here, folks. Dan, did you ever hear Dave Chappelle talk about R. Kelly?
Past the sketch?
No. When the R. Kelly documentary came out.
Oh no, I didn't. Oh no, no, I didn't.
Dave Chappelle. This is on his Netflix special he did, like, after
the guy who told on him like 20 years ago, that Dave Chappelle.
Well, he addressed it. He said, because I gotta talk about this, the R. Kelly documentary, because people have been asking me, why weren't you in the R. Kelly special? Or what did you have to say about the R. Kelly documentary? And people want to know why you weren't in it. Why? So I'm gonna say right now on this stage, so I can get it out in the open. Finally, the truth can be said. Why weren't you in the R. Kelly special? And Dave Chappelle just said, I don't know that nigga. Never met him a day in my life. I found about him the same way you did. Look, I don't know shit about this motherfucker.
Oh, fuck. That's funny.
Yeah.
But that's really funny.
Because, yeah, I don't know that.
Am I allowed to laugh at that?
Oh yeah, you're allowed. I laughed at it. We died. I was talking about that.
But you're black
at work. Yeah, it's fine. But but the point being not the N word, but the point being that he didn't know R. Kelly a day.
No, that's one of the best things I've ever heard about it.
Yeah, he said,
I don't know that motherfucker.
I don't know that. I never met that motherfucker in my life. But yeah, so that's how I felt. But the Chris Benoit, the CNN Death Grip special, aired today, in 2007.
Fuck CNN to
Fuck
this
CNN.
day.
And finally, I know it's not today, but it is the week in professional wrestling, and the theme of this podcast, Wrestling Historian, is pay-per-views that change professional wrestling. And it's November 9th that happened. It's tomorrow in wrestling history, but November 9th, 1997, Survivor Series, Montreal.
Oh God. You know, I used to get such a joy out of talking about that, but now I'm just like, I don't care anymore.
And that's why we're not going to dwell. I'm just saying that the theme of this episode's historian is pay-per-views that changed professional wrestling, and that certainly did, for better and for worse.
It certainly did. You fucking nailed that right. Oh boy. Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And that
there you
gentlemen and ladies, is a wrestling historian.
Hey, you know, keeping on the Hulk Hogan shit, in a stroke of genius, he appeared on stage with all-around good guy and not douchebag person at all, Jason Aldean, who didn't make a music video purposely on the grounds of a massacre against African-American people, and totally didn't write a song about dog whistling racism. But totally a good guy who didn't almost die of a heat stroke, and we would have not been lucky if that had happened. I would never say that because he's a great guy. Wow.
Yeah. Hulk Hogan on stage at a Jason Aldean show was the why doesn't this surprise me moment of 2023.
Just read the room, Hulk. But no, he's not going to read the room. He doesn't. It's all done on purpose. It's no shocker here.
No, I mean Hogan on stage with Jason Aldean, Flair in the ring on AEW. Sure.
Yeah, no, we're not going to talk about that again.
Nope.
Because we did a really good segment on it last week. I am going to say this. Tony Khan is a fucking coward.
Yeah.
Because the man went on this big Twitter tirade weeks ago. Had to be told to draw back. And he won't answer to anyone.
No.
And there's even a few people I'm watching. Nobody has any convictions. Nobody. And that makes me look like a dickhead because I do. But I refuse to be fake about any of this. Tony Khan, you're a pussy. I'm a nobody, so he doesn't have to answer to me, but you know.
Yeah, I was
Explain yourself. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I can't wait, but I can't wait because you know what's coming.
I swear to fuck if I have to watch Flair and Sting one more time.
No. That's not what's coming. What's coming is, and I like I said, I can wait and I can't wait. The Dark Side of the Ring episode on AEW is going to be phenomenal because it's coming. Because this current product at the downhill rate that it's going, viewer wise, attendance wise, all the money in the world, and Tony Khan probably has all the money in the world, can't sustain that. He can't sustain that just with his mental state of whatever he's in. He can't sustain it. So yeah, the Dark Side of the Ring episode on AEW is going to be, because by then all the NDAs will have run out. There won't be anyone left who can't talk about it.
Yeah. Yep. You know who texted me out of nowhere about that today was Ash.
Really?
Yeah. And she's like, how many years do you think till AEW goes the way of WCW? I was like, 1, 2.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, it's hard to believe it's already been 4 years already, but I mean, TNA lasted how long? And TNA's numbers on the Nashville network are way more. I mean, the TNA was averaging at least 1 million viewers every week. Even
Nitro was over 1 million viewers every week still.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're not. I'm granted, wrestling was seen by a lot more people there, a lot more outlet. I mean, availability, but still, they weren't doing numbers in the hundreds of thousands.
The hope you have of ever putting the WWF WWE out of business died the moment they sold.
Mm-hmm.
That is over. That is a game that you don't have to play. In fact, it's a game that Tony Khan and his fuckboys are playing by them. They're playing with themselves. Like, nobody else is playing this game.
Mm-mm.
Maybe the first year, Vince was looking over his shoulder, mostly to avoid the sex scandal. Let me rephrase that. Him outed as a fucking abuser.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Tony Khan, you're still a coward. It's crazy to me that he's still playing this game.
Well, it's not a game to him. This is something he's always wanted to do since he was a kid.
Unfortunately, I think it is a game to him.
Oh, it all is, because he's playing fantasy booker just like he did when he was a child, when he was a youth. Now he gets to play with all of his little friends, and people that are not going to say no to him, people that are not going to tell him his ideas are stupid, or maybe you should, hey, why don't you push this guy? Or the guy that you keep putting on every single week, that I know he's your favorite wrestler, you dressed up like him for Halloween, but he's killing your ratings. No one wants to see him. The people in the audience, sure, but the people that are watching at home, the ones you need to appeal to, they don't care about this guy. And the biggest star you had, you ran him off. And you instead of firing the person who is not going to mean shit to you, even though he's the son of a famous movie or TV star, he's not going to do shit for you.
No.
But you fire the biggest star you've ever had in your company, rather than try to appease him, trying to do something that will. I mean, you gave him his own Saturday night show that was almost on his way to outdrawing your Wednesday night show, but then he killed that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Never mind.
What?
I don't want to make this an AEW bashing podcast, but give me a reason.
But there's so much to bash.
Give me a reason to not. Where's the different? I said it last week. You're no different. There is no difference. You're all the same. So give me a reason they're not the same. Because I even said, and the motherfucker didn't have anything to say, did he? On Twitter, they're different in name only. They're doing the same shit. Well, yeah, but did they have the... How is that different?
Yeah.
Crash TV already happened.
Yeah.
Make me believe. And when you have the young... you and I can debate Kenny Omega till the rooster comes home. I don't have it in me to come down on him as hard as you do, but you have different reasons, and that's fine. The Young Bucks, fuck off. We don't want to talk to him. You can act big and bad on Twitter all you want to your little, again, fuck boys. And I'm not talking about wrestling fans. I'm talking about the fuck boys,
Yes.
the bootlickers.
Mm-hmm.
Do one or the other, wrestle or book. Don't
Yeah.
do both. And we said,
Yeah.
they need to hire actual bookers,
Well,
or assign that to somebody, and
Well-
somebody needs to be the boss, not being the booker and the boss, Tony. And also, don't be a coward. Anyway,
no, well, another thing's gonna happen because if only he had some experienced wrestlers that are in your company that can impart some wisdom, if not only not how to book, but how to feature certain guys and putting them in positions to make an impact, no pun intended, on your show. But when you have a company and you employ men that have such experience, like an Arn Anderson, a Tully Blanchard, a Jake Roberts, a Mark Henry, a Paul White, and hey, even the guy that was the head of talent relations for the biggest wrestling company on God's green earth of all time. Hey, maybe Jim Ross might have an idea too about how to make your life easier, Tony, so you wouldn't have to book everything and do everything by yourself. Just a suggestion. I mean, you want to hire Jim Ross to be your announcer only? Great. I'm sure he loves the money and loves working once a month. I'm sure but if you want to, I don't know, get more out of him, or maybe give him another title in terms of, talent management consulting. I'm not going to say booker, even though he could do it in his sleep with his eyes closed,
at this point, I'm saying booker. Yeah.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm saying booker.
Doesn't Jeff Jarrett work there too? Didn't he book an entire, we were just talking about TNA and how that outdrew everything that AEW's doing now.
Whatever do you mean? That never happened. I do like them inviting Cornette, and my differences aside with Cornette, but I do like them inviting Cornette and no, I'm not coming.
Or he couldn't find somebody else to get the 2-for-1 deal to go to, because they were offering a 2-for-1 deal to anyone who came to the Yum Center in Louisville.
Yum.
Yeah, but Cornette said I couldn't find another person to go to 2-for-1, so I can't make it.
One of the damnedest things I've ever heard. Well, I think we'll leave it at that. Craig, where can people follow you?
They can follow me if they so choose in my unmarked van full of candy.
Candy.
Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter at Craig Ligons, CraigLiggeons.
You can follow me getting into the marked van without asking questions on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Hive. I'm still trying to make Hive a thing. YouTube, Twitch, TikTok at DanLaw83. For the very tired Derek McDonald, hopefully we'll meet up soon. For the never tired and awesome airbrush shirt wearing motherfucker, Craig Ligons, I am the above average comedian, Dan Calchico. Keep it on the paper. We'll see you in 2 weeks.